What is going on, peasants? My name is JB, and I am back here today with something very, very, very cool. This is my PCL Season 3 draft analysis for the Cincinnati Dreds, which is my new team. So shout out to John Jr., not only for the new logo, but for these ridiculously cool graphics that he made for the league. So John's the graphics goat. Go hit him up if you need stuff. But for those of you who don't know what the PCL is, it is a draft league ran by my good friend Austin, aka Garchomp the God. I'm also an admin for the league. But yeah, go check him out on Twitter. Follow Austin in the description. He's a great dude. He doesn't upload anymore, but yeah, you can go follow him on Twitter. He's funny occasionally. He rants about sports and stuff. Yeah, just go follow him. Anyway, just a little bit of history between me and the PCL. In the first two seasons, I was actually a finalist and a runner-up, so I would love to get that monkey off my back and have the third time be a charm and, you know, finally win the finals. I'm like the LeBron James of the PCL. I keep making the finals, but I keep losing, so hopefully we can finally win at least one to validate myself. That makes sense, right? Anyway, I guess I should give a brief explanation of what Draft League is, because some of you might not know. I do have like a ridiculous amount of new subscribers. I think last count I had like 60 new subs just since Sword and Shield dropped. So thank you guys so much for that. First off, it's freaking ridiculous how much support like you guys have been showing. Like 60 subscribers isn't a lot for a lot of YouTubers, but for a channel my size, that's like literally a third of my viewership, so that's insane. Yeah, so I guess I should just explain Draft League for those of you who may not be familiar. It's basically fantasy sports meets Pokemon. You get a bunch of people who will be your coaches, and you all draft a team, and then you get a schedule made. You play everyone on your schedule. If you make playoffs, and you compete for a championship in like a bracket. Usually it's you know, single elimination bracket, as it is in like pretty much all leagues, but yeah, it's like, yeah, just a tournament to end the season. Best teams make it, blah blah blah. So yeah, you have to be very creative with how you build your sets. Like, you can't just bring, you know, your standard sets that you would see on like the showdown ladder. You have to be creative. You have to, you know, find the right set with the right Pokemon for the right matchup, and you're playing a different team every week. It's just a lot of fun. It's honestly my favorite way to play Pokemon, and if you're interested, you know, hit up some Discord servers. People are always plugging, you know, looking for plugging their leagues, looking for people to join, looking for people to apply. So if you've never been in a league and you would want to try that, just try joining some Discord servers. I could recommend like the GBA fan Discord server. It has a chat dedicated to people plugging their leagues, so go look there if you're looking to join leagues and whatnot. That's a great way to, you know, get into the scene basically. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the PCL itself. One more thing before we actually get into it. Thank you guys for coming out to the draft stream, by the way, which was hosted probably, yeah, I'm uploading this a day after the stream, so myself and Shaykwaza hosted that over on his Twitch, so if you showed up to that, thank you guys for that. Obviously, I'm recording this in the future, or like, I'm recording this before that happens, so I can tell you right now, it's gonna be just it's gonna be a wacky time. I'm sure it was, so I apologize for anything offensive we will inevitably say on that stream. Anyway, so just to go over the PCL and how the rules were set up for it, it is going to be a tier-based league. We had the 5 tiers, which is probably gonna change based on, you know, future draft leagues. This being the first one for Sword and Shield, we just went with the standard 5-tier format. That could potentially be something that changes down the line, but anyway, 5 tiers. You get your tier 1, a tier 2, 2 tier 3s, a tier 4, and a tier 5, and then 4 free picks. So you have like 400 points to spend. You can use like tier 1s cost a certain amount, tier 2s cost a blah 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 blah, and you have to like fit within that free point budget. You can use it however you want. There's also, I believe, 6 S tier Pokemon that took up a free slot and cost like, I believe, over half of your free points. So stuff like Galarian, Darmanitan, Excadrill, those were just 2 of them that I can think of off the top of my head. So yeah, that's basically just a rundown of how the league is being ran this time around. Also, for Dynamax, we are allowing ourselves 1 Dynamax captain, which had to be tier 3 or below. So like your Dragapult, your stuff like that, your really good Pokemon, like, you know, your normal stuff that you would see Dynamaxing on the ladder, you probably won't be seeing too many of those Pokemon Dynamaxing in this league. Like, they had to be decent Pokemon, but not the best Pokemon. is how we decided to balance that, which is again probably something that will change in the future, because there's a couple other leagues that have started up that have ideas that I quite like, so we might have to adapt to that in future seasons. But for this season, we're going to be doing the tier 3 and under Dynamax captain rule, and I will get to that, my captain, when I get to that, obviously. So we're about 5 minutes in. Let's cut the nonsense and go ahead and talk about my first pick. I had 4th pick out of 16 coaches, which is pretty good. You want to be close to a wheel, because it goes 1 through 16 and then 16 to 1. So in my opinion, being closer to a wheel is always a better position to be in, because it means you get to pick 2 of your Pokemon. You get to like build your team quicker, basically. Like, you can guarantee yourself 2 Pokemon pretty much, before you have to like a ton of picks go back and forth. Like, you get to pick close to, you know what I mean, you know what I'm trying to say. I'm bad at words. It's almost 4 a.m. and I wanted to record something, so I'm recording this tonight. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into my first pick. My first draft pick of Gen 8 was, I'm editing this live. Boom. Also, webcam here. Was myself. I drafted Grimmsnarl 4th overall. It was a tier 2 pick, and I thought that Excadrill, or you can see Excadrill was the previous pick. That's why I got distracted. But I thought Grimmsnarl being in tier 2 was just too good to pass up on. Grimmsnarl, along with being one of my favorite new designs of any Pokemon, just has a really fun move pool, and I feel like it will really it fits my build style perfectly. Is the main way I was able to rationalize drafting a tier 2 Pokemon round 1. Then I just thought the value was too good. This thing provides so much utility, which is something that I try to draft a lot of utility. This thing can be very easily just be an offensive breaker. It can, run team support with screens. It can do stuff like that. 2 of the absolute best abilities in the entire game in Prankster and Frisk. Honestly, as much as I love Frisk, I feel like Prankster is going to be the more useful of the 2, but Frisk is by no means a bad ability. It's, like I said, one of the absolute best in the game, in my opinion. But this thing just gets so much utility with Prankster. It's unreal. Good, not great bulk. Its HP is decent. Good attack stats, both physically and specially. So you can run Nasty Plot sets. You get that, set up that Prankster Nasty Plot and go to town. Middling speed tier base 60, which is actually better than it was in previous generations, because the dex is so slow at this point in Sword and Shield. And not to mention a phenomenal Dark and Fairy typing. Fairy types are always like a hot commodity in draft leagues, and especially in again Gen 8, where there aren't as many Fairy types. You want to make sure you can get it going, and in my opinion, I think Grimmsnarl, like, it's just gonna be so much fun to build with, so much fun to prep with. And that's why I ultimately made it my first pick. It just gets so many cool things. Prankster Trick, Prankster Taunt, Prankster Thunderwave, just to name 3 of the main ones. Again, Prankster Screens is a set that you guys probably have seen on the ladder a lot. But yeah, and if you want to run Bandit, its offensive coverage is phenomenal as well, or like an offensive set in general. You can run like a bulk up set, or stuff like that. It gets the Elemental Punches, Leech Life, and Drain Punch for recovery, depending on your matchup. Just so much fun coverage and so many fun moves that I think it's very much worth a round 1 pick, and I'm very much looking forward to using this Pokemon. So, moving on to my next pick. There are certain cores in Draft League, again, for those of you who don't know, that you should try to pick up. Like, obviously you want to pick up your Fire, your Water, and your Grass type. That's a very common core. Another very common core, and in my opinion, the most important core in Draft League, is your Fairy, your Dragon, and your Steel core. Those 3 types complement each other perfectly. You always want to try to grab one of each of those types. So I killed 2 birds, or I guess 3 birds with 2 stones, because I have all 3 of those types in 2 Pokemon. My next pick was Duraludon, another tier 2 Pokemon, so I had to dip into my free points for this, but I thought Duraludon's typing alone was enough to warrant taking it where I did. Just locking up my Fairy, Dragon, and Steel core, and giving me just another really fun Pokemon. Unfortunately, the things that Duraludon lacks really do like hinder it. Specifically, not having fire coverage for opposing steel types is really bad. Its best move to hit opposing steel types is like Brick Break or Stomping Tantrum, so that's kind of bad. Body Press 2 is decent because it does have a relatively high physical defense stat, but it does struggle against some of the bulkier steel types, like your Steelixes and stuff like that. If it had like Flamethrower or Fire Blast, those Pokemon wouldn't be an issue, but unfortunately it just does not have that coverage. Or even like Focus Blast doesn't have that either, which is a little bit unfortunate, but what it does do, it gives me a really fun move pool. which is again something I like to target in my drafts, and Pokemon that are unpredictable in what set they'll run. Basically, Pokemon that can run any sort of set and do well, which is I feel like something that Duraludon can do. It gives me a Stealth Rocker, which is always nice. It gives me another Thunder Wave user, which can never be underappreciated, because my team is actually very, very slow. So if I need to like slow my opponent down, I do have a few Pokemon that can click Thunder Wave. This Pokemon does have a pretty shallow move pool, but it gets, like I said, pretty much everything it needs aside from like fire coverage. That's the only thing I wish Duraludon got that it doesn't get. And its abilities leave a little bit to be desired. Even with heavy metal, heavy slam still doesn't hit that hard because this thing is not heavy. It looks like it weighs a ton, but it actually weighs like 80 pounds, which is a little bit ridiculous. So unfortunately not going to be getting too much use out of heavy slam, but you do still have Iron Head, Flash Cannon, Steel Beam for stuff like that. You do have access to Thunderbolt, which is nice, so it can do some things. Not the best coverage, but its typing alone pairs perfectly with Grimmsnarl, so that alone, like I said, warranted where I picked it. So I'm very excited to use it, and I think it will probably end up coming to most games and doing a decent amount of work as my Dragon type. And plus, new Pokemon are always cool to draft, so draft as many new Pokemon as you could. That's kind of my that wasn't really my philosophy going in, but I did want to make sure I grabbed a lot of new Pokemon. Now, moving on to my next pick. Like I said, I realized my team is very, very slow, but I wanted to just have a crazy wall breaker. Excuse me. And I was, I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to grab this Pokemon. It was a Pokemon that always eluded me in Gen 7 because it was either in Tier 1 where I just never felt like it was worth drafting in Tier 1, or people would always take it before I was willing to if it was in Tier 2. But here, it was a Tier 1 pick, and it was like the only Tier 1 I really wanted, which was another reason why I took it when I did. I'm like, none of these other Pokemon in this tier seem that like interesting to me, so I'm just gonna go ahead and take this because it's the only one I really want that was still left at the time, and that was Conkeldurr. I wanted Pelipper. I was gonna go Rain with this team, but unfortunately that got sniped like right before it was my turn to pick, so I was like, well, can't do that anymore. So we ended up with Conkeldurr, and what Conkeldurr gives me is another just absolute offensive juggernaut with a phenomenal base attack stat, really cool move pool, really fun abilities in Guts, Sheer Force, and Iron Fist, all three of which are very, very useful and have their own niches in specific matchups. But it gives me something else that is very, very slow. Now, you might be thinking, oh, just draft Trick Room. I do have 2 Trick Room setters, but they're also the 2 fastest Pokemon on my team, so probably won't be able to do too much with Trick Room this season, unfortunately. We'll see, though. But Conkeldurr is a really cool mon. They gave it Defog this generation for some reason. They also gave it Reliable Fighting Stab. I mean, it already had Reliable Fighting Stab with stuff like Drain Punch, but they gave it Close Combat. Close Combat is the most spammable, one of the most spammable moves in the game, so having that in its arsenal just makes it that much better. So you don't have to like lower your attack with Superpower, or basically just Superpower, and then you don't have to worry about missing Hammer Arms and stuff like that. So having Close Combat is just a nice little buff. Pretty much every punching move in the game, Mach Punch, it gets for priority even, so you don't really have to worry about your speed in certain matchups. Elemental Punches again, like Conkeldurr just hits so incredibly hard. The only thing it really lost that it like actually misses is Knockoff. But, it does still have that coverage with, like, Brutal Swing and stuff like that. I believe it also gets Throat Chop. It does not get Throat Chop, but it does get Brutal Swing if you really need to hit a somehow slower Psychic type, or if, I just need to. Brutal Swing is there if I need it, basically. So, Conkeldurr is going to be really fun. It's going to punch a lot of things, and I'm excited to use it. It's going to hit hard, and that's what I needed to do. So, my next pick, I needed a Fairy Killer. Duraludon helps with fairies, but it doesn't really take Moonblasts all that well because its Spadef is so terribly bad. So I needed a good fairy killer, and I ended up grabbing Gengar, which was another tier 1 Pokemon. So I managed to get both of them like back to back pretty much. So that was pretty cool. And Gengar is the fastest Pokemon on my team, so that's a little bit in previous generations, but in Gen 8 it's not actually that bad because, like I said, the Dex is so slow this time around that having a Pokemon that's 110 speed is pretty decent. Gengar is phenomenal this generation. Like, it's probably gonna balance out at some point on the ladder, but it's running rampant as I'm recording this in UU. It's like it has basically unresisted coverage, and it just hits so incredibly hard. It just does what Gengar always does, and I think it's kind of like being lifted up by like old toy syndrome. I know like new toy syndrome is a thing for new generation, but everyone knows what Gengar does, and it's just doing it so well that why not just slap a Gengar in every team and let it run wild? And that's kind of what I'm hoping for here. Also, like I said, it gives me a great fairy killer with its speed and typing, obviously being part poison type. Just slap Sludge Bomb, Sludge Wave on it, and kill all the fairies, which is phenomenal. It gets enough coverage to, it gets basically everything it needs with stuff like electric coverage with Thunderbolts. It gets Focus Blast, which is nice, Energy Ball, Dazzling Gleams, so it can hit stuff like, it can hit most stuff it needs to. Unfortunately, they did not give this thing Mystical Fire. That would have been so nice, so you don't have to rely on hitting Focus Blast against fire types, but alas, we could not, unfortunately, get Mystical Fire Gengar. Maybe that will be a thing that gets released in the future. Hopefully, probably not. Obviously, that we wouldn't know already if it was gonna get it in the future. So we're just gonna have to, you know, hit Focus Blast. So we might just run Blunder Policy. So we'll, you know, miss our second Focus Blast faster. But also something else worth noting is Gengar now has access to Nasty Plot, which cannot be understated. Being able to set up, if you can ever get that off for free, you can just go in. And another thing that I really love about Gengar is it is a fast taunt user, being, you know, base 110 speed. Like I already told you guys, it's the fastest thing on my team. Fast taunt is never something that can be overlooked. Granted, I do have a prankster taunt user, but taunt's always something that I consider throwing on a moveset if I'm ever like, you know, I have 3 moves that really hit everything. I don't know what else to put. Oh, I know, taunt. That's basically one of my fallbacks. So there's, you know, if anyone watching from the league is scouting, you know, there you go. I throw taunt on the end of my sets a lot. There you go. But yeah, Gengar gets a lot of fun stuff. It's very killer, and that's why I took it. Next up, I actually don't remember what order this was in. Next up was Eldegoss. So I needed a ground resist because I had no ground checks whatsoever at this point. So I'm like, I need a ground resist. Oh, I should tell you guys, I was gonna take round 2 Braviary because I thought it was in tier 3 and it was that good of value for being my Dynamax captain. I think it is going to be by far the best Dynamax Pokemon, but unfortunately someone else had the same thought and took it literally 2 picks before me, so I could not get round 2 Braviary, which is something worth noting. I should probably have noted that before go on my next pick, because that was my next pick is my replacement for Braviary. But it sort of led into it with the whole needing a ground resist thing. I didn't have one at the time, but I didn't really know what I was going to do at this pick, so I'm like, oh, Eldegoss is cool. I haven't used it yet, so I haven't even used it on the ladder or anything, so I really don't know what this thing does. I know it gets Regenerator, which is really cool. It gets Effect Spore, which is also kind of useful. Cotton Down is actually pretty decent, especially if against like a fast physical attacker, if I can like neutralize something Scarf, if I know it's Scarf, that could be useful. But most of the time I'm probably just gonna be running Regenerator. If this thing got U-turn, it'd be very good, but it's your typical fat grass type. Bad HP, but really good defenses, decent attack stats, well, decent special attack, bad speed, but it does have Rapid Spin, which is also nice. So it's basically just here to be an Earthquake switch and a fat grass type if I ever need it. Its coverage is very lackluster. Like, it doesn't really get many offensive moves that aren't grass type. I'm looking at it right now, and yeah, it really only gets grass attack. It gets Hyper Voice, that's useful. It gets, you know, Leech Seed, Synthesis, Sub, all that sort of stuff. It gets Sleep Powder, which is cool. But in terms of attacks, it only gets it only gets grass and normal coverage. It gets Bug, it gets Pollen Puff, so that's, I guess, useful against other grass types. But yeah, this thing's coverage is awful. But it's a ground resist and it gets Rapid Spin, so that's cool. Yeah, this thing's bad. This thing is really bad. But hopefully it can do what I need it to. Just spun some hits, remove some hazards. Be fat. Yeah, that's just do that for me and I'll consider you a win. Other than that though, your move pool is god awful, Eldegoss. Oh my god. Alright, so next up is, like I said, my Braviary replacement, and it ended up being Xatu. Xatu is a very cool Pokemon. This is my Dynamax captain, so this is my only Pokemon on my entire team that can Dynamax all season. So something else worth mentioning with Dynamaxing is we banned Life Orb and Choice Scarf. Every other item is usable on your Dynamax captain, but no Life Orb, no Choice Scarf. Because, you know, getting boosts from, you know, like, I'll just use Braviary as an example because it's like one of the more notable ones. Like, you get your Max Knuckles off and you get like +3 attack, and you're still a Scarf Braviary after your Dynamax ends. That's a little bit busted. And then Life Orb, it's still you still get the extra life orb damage on top of, you know, being Dynamax and doing more damage. We had to compromise somehow because a lot of people in the league just did not want to use Dynamax at all. So we had to do something to compromise with them. Hopefully, you know, with rules in the future, like, people will get more used to it. And because I don't want to play an entire generation without the main gimmick, because that would just be boring to me, which is why I'm like, if Dynamax gets banned on the ladder, I'm probably not going to play Showdown that much. But hey, we'll see. Hopefully it doesn't get banned, basically. But main reason I took Xatu is I wanted, like, flying Max Airstream. I'll just say that. I'll just say it that way. I was gonna make it like more convoluted than that, but Max Airstream is the best Dynamax move in my opinion, because +1 speed can never be overstated in draft league anyway. On the ladder it's debatable, but in draft league I feel like just Max Airstream is going to be so valuable because speed boost is just so good against you know, just being able to outspeed your opponent is sometimes all you need to just win a game. So that's why I wanted my Dynamax captain to be a flying type. Thought about Unpheasant. My front office really wanted me to draft Unpheasant, but I was just like, no, it's an Unpheasant, not doing it. So I ended up going with Xatu. Obviously, you guys have been staring at it, but Xatu gets really good coverage. Magic Bounce is a great ability, preventing my opponent from clicking hazards or status move. That's always nice. But something else, you know, like I said, is it's great move pool, fairy coverage, grass coverage, fire coverage. Gets a U-turn to pivot out if it needs to. It gets priority and sucker punch, and you know, stuff like that. Gets ghost coverage as well. Only thing, like, if it got poison coverage, it got like poison gas or something, it'd be broken because it, you know, get that +1 special attack boost. That'd be lit. But yeah, Xatu's very good. Very excited to use it. Should be a very fun time, and hopefully we can get at least a couple of Xatu sleeps. That's really all I can ask for with a Pokemon like that. So, you know, just one or two. We'll settle for one. I'll settle for one. Next up is Rhydon. So I needed a ground type. It was the best ground type I could afford at this point. I had blown like most of my points, so I had to like budget myself just so I'd be able to fit in like the points allowance. So I'd already picked a tier 1 and a tier 2. The most like you could pick was two tier 1s, regardless of, you know, how many points you had. So I had already done that, and I had already got an extra tier 1 or an extra tier 2 on top of that. So that means my last 2 free picks had to be tier 5s. Rhydon was a tier 4 though. It was my tier 4 slot. I don't know why I'm going off on a tangent, but Rhydon is very reliable. Honestly, it is legitimately like a top 5 design all time for me. So I love Rhydon's design. It just looks so cool. I just want to hug it. But Rhydon's really cool. Got some decent abilities. Lightning Rod, pretty useless because it's already a ground type. But Rockhead and Reckless are both pretty decent. Fairly solid abilities. But where this thing really shines is, you know, it's good bulk, fantastic physical defense at base 120. And since you're going to be rocking an Eviolite most weeks anyway, you can pretty much just invest in Spadef and be really thick and really hard to take down. But it's a great stealth rocker. Can be ran offensively if you want to. If like you need to throw Sword Stance on it and, you know, smack some people around. Gets a lot of coverage. It's a Gen 1 Pokemon, so it gets like everything: elemental punches, Mega Horn, Poison Jab, just to name a few. Superpower. It gets freaking Hydro Pump for some reason this gen. But yeah, it's a really cool Pokemon. Like I said, one of my favorite designs of all time, and I'm very happy to use it. I couldn't afford Rhyperior. Rhyperior is also, I love the evolutionary line, just something about it. I don't know. I like them. But yeah, I couldn't afford Rhyperior. It was a tier 3, and I have Eldegoss on my team, so yeah, that's an L. That's an L, Degoss. No, I'll take that L for that one. Oh god, did I just make a fucking Fortnite reference in almost 2020? Yikes. All right, so moving on from that, next up, my next pick was Barbaracle. I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about Barbaracle because I ended up dropping it, so we're just gonna move on. Barbaracle, it was a water type, really cool water type, really offensive. Could Shell Smash and smack some things around, gives me another stealth factor, but it's no longer on my team, so we're just gonna move on to my next pick, which was Heatmore. Heatmore was sitting in tier 5. I'm like, wait, this is the only halfway decent tier 5 here. I'm gonna take it. Gives me a fire immunity with Flash Fire, which is nice, and a really fun move pool. Priority Sucker Punch is always nice. Decent speed tier for Taunt as well. Being able to taunt like slower things. Base 65 speed is decent. The okay offensive stats, 97 attack, 105 special attack, but where this thing shines is it's a decent move pool. Like I've already mentioned, Sucker Punch. It gets grass coverage. It gets It gets Thunder Punch for, it doesn't get Ice Punch, unfortunately. That'd be really good. It does get Giga Drain, though, to hit ground types, which is nice. It gets, like, Focus Blast, some decent fighting coverage as well. So, it's an okay Pokemon. It was really good value for Tier 5. Like, Tier 5, there's nothing there that's great. So, I went ahead and took the best thing that I thought was there, and it was Heatmore. Next up was our technically final pick of the draft was Vespiquen, but that is also no longer on the team, so we're not going to spend really any time talking about that. I took it because it was another ground immunity, as well as it gave me something for T-Spikes, but it's no longer on the team because I did, after the draft, make 2 transactions. We were given like a grace period after the draft of like, I believe it was 3 days, and any trades we made in those 3 days would be active for week 1. So these 2 trades will be active for my week 1 game, who I'll talk about who my opponent is once we get done with these 2 months. So I've dropped Barbarical and Vespiquen, and I picked up Rotom Frost and Octillery. Yeah, I think I let this drop in a showdown live that there may or may not be an Octillery on one of my draft league teams, and yeah, this is it. I have an Octillery on my draft league team. It's Tier 5. It's really, really bad. Moody is banned, so don't even worry about that. Moody's banned. Don't have to worry about it. But Suction Cups and Sniper are decent. And listen. Octillery is really bad, but it's actually not that bad. The only bad thing about it is its speed stat is base 45, which is pretty much unusable. It's slow enough that you can't scarf it and outspeed things, and it's just bad. It's a really bad speed tier. Okay, bulk, base 75 bulk, 105 attacks is very, very good, and this thing's move pool is freaking phenomenal. It's so good. Like, who gave Octillery all these dope moves? Like, poison coverage, grass coverage, fire coverage, steel coverage, obviously ice coverage. It gets rock coverage. It gets so many cool moves. It does get bounce, so if I want to, it would cost me a transaction, but I can make this my Dynamax captain, and I could max Airstream bounce and then get a speed boost and click acid spray and get or max acid spray, get a special attack boost and just kill everything. Might end up having to do that. I'm not gonna do that, but listen, the option's there. Okay, Octillery. Hopefully it will come to a few games. It's the only water on my team. It's gonna have to come to at least a couple of games, and hopefully in those couple of games it does something. That's all I'm hoping for, just something. And as for our last team member, it is Rotom Frost. Rotoms are always good. I don't care about the type. Rotom Frost is one of the worst. Obviously it has to rely on Blizzard for its ice stab, but it's still a Rotom. Rotoms are always annoying, and like Rotoms really always fit on any team. It gives me an electric type, which is always nice. It gives me another ground immunity that it's just a better ground immunity than Vespiquen. And trust me, man, I ain't scared to click Blizzard, so I'll click it if I need to. But it's Rotom, and like I said, Rotoms are always decent. It gets double status, Thunder Wave, and Will-O-Wisp. It used to get Toxic. It doesn't have it anymore. But yeah, it's really cool. Unfortunately, it doesn't have access to defog. However, we made a rule that whenever home gets released, we will be able to use whatever moves. So like when home gets released, I will have access to using defog on my Rotom. So if it gets released mid-season, hey, another defogger, and actually a really good defogger with heavy duty boots. So Rotom Frost is solid. It's a Rotom. I'll hit Blizzards if I have to, but otherwise it's a really good pivot, really good annoyance. It's gonna do Rotom things, and it's gonna be great. So that is my team for PCL Season 3. All in all, I really like the top like 7 picks, and I like the top 8 picks. Heatmore and Octillery are but I'll make do with them because I don't really have much of a choice. So we'll do what we can with it, and hopefully it works out. That's really all I can say about it, and I'm looking forward to it. I think this is a pretty good team. It's definitely a playoff team. It's definitely a playoff team just based on the first 4 mons alone. Those 4 mons just kill everything. My first 4 picks, Grimmsnarl, Duraludon, Conkeldurr, Gengar, like those 4 together are absolutely phenomenal. So though like as long as they carry the team, I think we'll be okay. And I think they very well can. So I'm not too worried about this, but it should be fine. Just to go over my first week matchup, I do play Goldoa Dragon week 1. It will go up whenever you're watching this. It'll go up the Saturday after the 4th of January. So I believe the 4th of January is a Saturday, so it'll be the 11th. Yeah. So yeah, the 4th of January is a Saturday, so January 11th will be the date of my first week 1 game for this. So yeah, this is going up like a couple weeks early, but we wanted to go ahead and just drop them now. We didn't want to wait. And then the day before that, the Friday, I'll have a team builder out, so be sure to look out for that. And like I said, 3 weeks from now, so hey, hopefully you guys still remember this. But yeah, that's gonna pretty much wrap it up for me. Like I said at the beginning, be sure to go down in the description and check out everyone else in the league's draft analysis. They'll be going up between now and the 4th, so most of them are probably up today or in the next couple of days, so be sure to go check those out. Subscribe to everyone, show everyone some love. And with all that being said, let me know what you think. Let me know how many wins you think I'll get. It's 11 league season, so let me know what you guys think my record will be, and if you're right, I'll I don't know, I'll do something. But yeah, thanks guys. My name's JB. Peace.